Welcome to the Charleen Hess Show, living on your heart's edge on transformationtalkradio.com. In each episode, Charleen empowers you to shed the layers of your ego that hold you back and to connect more deeply to your true self. You will hear real, raw, and inspiring stories of people just like you who are letting go of fear to follow their heart's calling. Finally, the inspiration you've been waiting for to step out of fear and into your knowing. Get ready to feel empowered to live from your heart and follow that dream inside of you. Discover how to live on your heart's edge. The world is waiting for you to shine your light and share your gift. Now here's your host. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Charleen Hess Show, Living on Your Heart's Edge. Today, I am going to be sharing with you the proprietary method that I have discovered and created of how to live a truly authentic, meaningful, happy life. Not one that just looks like that on the outside, but one where you are really, truly connected to your deepest, truest self on the inside. I often hear from, every day, I hear from people who are smart, successful, healthy, heart-centered, driven people who on the outside look like they are living a wonderfully happy life. Like they've totally got it all together and they're living this life that looks so perfect on the outside. I'm sure you know the ones I'm talking about. I'm sure you scrolling through your Facebook or scrolling through your Instagram, you see these people as well. Everything looks so great and wonderful. But as they share with me in just either as their hairdresser sitting in my chair or as their life coach or even just in friendly conversation, that although everything looks great and wonderful and happy on the outside, on the inside, they feel completely lost, stuck, overwhelmed, like they're in this life that the momentum of life has taken over and they're just churning their wheels, doing everything that they can just to keep up not only this facade of this happy life, but also just to keep up with the life that they've created, thinking that this is the life that they intended to live. This is the life that they're supposed to have. This is what life is supposed to look like. Because it has all of the components, right? It has all of the elements. You know, they maybe have a good job. They could have a family. They could be married, in a relationship. They could go on vacations. And even though they're doing all of these things, again, on the outside, it looks like everything is great. But on the inside, there's still something seriously missing. They feel like there's this disconnection. There's this emptiness. They're going, but what is it? What is it? Why is it that I'm not feeling this happiness really from the inside, from my core? Why is it that I have all these things, but on the inside, I am feeling lost and stuck and overwhelmed? And I know that life really well because that was my life. When I was 25 years old, I was married. I owned my own house. I had 2 children, a girl and a boy. I had my own business. I was very successful. My business was growing rapidly. I was nominated Businesswoman of the Year. I belonged to a church where I held 5 different positions. I spoke regularly. I gave talks on marriage. I gave talks on health. I gave talks on parenting. And on the outside, I looked like I had the most perfect life and I had reached ultimate success and I was only 25 years old. But what people didn't know is that on the inside, I felt like I was dying. I was so overwhelmed and I was battling depression. But on the outside, it looked like I was so happy. Everyone would come into the salon and they would be like, wow, you have this really amazing life. And you and your husband look so happy together and look at your beautiful children. And we were even going on vacation sometimes. And I did a really good job of holding up that facade until I couldn't hold it up anymore. I came to a point to where I was so overwhelmed and I was so depressed that I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. And it took everything in me to be able to muster up the strength to give my kids food for breakfast in the morning. But this was just on the weekends, because during the week, I didn't have time. I didn't have room to fall apart because I had this life I had to keep up with. I had this facade that I had to keep up with. I had these expectations that were put upon me by all of the people around me. My friends, they had this view of who Charleen was, and they expected me to show up in that way. I was happy and bubbly, and they were expecting that person to show up, and I couldn't let them down. At church, I had to show up as the inspirational health message, person who was living the ultimate life of health, and I was going to share all this information that I had and share my life of healthy living. And at I also shared information on marriage, right? So I was in marriage counseling, and I had all this information. We'd gone to marriage conferences, and people would come to me and be like, you have this amazing and happy marriage. Like, we want to know all the secrets. And I would share with them all of the things that I had learned in my counseling. I would share with them all the things that I had learned in my marriage conferences, but they certainly weren't the experience that I was having in my marriage. So I had become the ultimate picture of an amazing life, but on the inside, I was really battling depression. And I was able to hold this up for so long. And maybe you can relate. Maybe you have an experience in your life where on the outside, you are holding together this picture of what your life is supposed to look like. Maybe it's a career that you're in that you're not really connected to, or maybe it's a relationship that you're in that you've kind of lost yourself in, or friendships, or anything really that could be where you are having a vast difference of what your life looks like on the outside, the supposed to life, and what you're feeling on the inside. Because the thing is that feeling of disconnection, that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of being stuck and just pedaling to try and keep up isn't going to just magically disappear. I felt like if I ignored it long enough, it would go away. I felt like maybe I could buy into everybody else's idea and vision of what my life was, right? Because they all seemed to think I had an amazing life, except I didn't. So, well, maybe they see something I don't, and I just need to believe harder. Maybe I need to just tap into what they're seeing. If I can just keep putting on the show, I'll convince myself. Have you heard I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, fake it till you make it. Well, I faked it for 19 years. And I finally hit that place of absolute exhaustion and overwhelm. I came to this place where I started to realize that I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. I looked in the mirror and I was just like, who is that person? Fortunately, that light that I'd had inside of me, that deep down, that thing that we know that people will often hear, use the term, well, deep down, I know this. Well, deep down, I know that everything's okay. Well, deep down, I know, and fill in the blank. So for me, deep down, I knew that there was something so much more than the experience that I was living. Deep down, I knew that there had to be true happiness and joy that I could tap into, but I'd come to the realization that it wasn't going to be through all the avenues I was searching. It wasn't going to be through my church and a deeper connection with Jesus Christ, right? Because I tried that. I realized it wasn't going to be through living the perfectly married life. I realized it wasn't going to be through going on more vacations and spending more money on acquiring more things. Maybe if I remodeled my house, it would work. Maybe if my kids were doing better in school, it would work. Maybe if I was more involved in my children's lives, I would be more happy. Maybe if I was prettier, if I could go shopping, and if I could wear the right makeup, if I could maybe get a new hairstyle or buy more clothes, then I could find a happiness. You know what I'm talking about, like all the things that we do to keep searching, filling that hole, that big giant hole we have inside of our heart by all the external things of buying more toys, buying more experiences. And then we often go into the transformation world, right? And so that was what had happened to me as I came to this place where I realized, okay, something's got to give. Like, I can't continue on this way. I can't keep up this facade of this amazing, happy life. Like, I'm trying really hard and I'm working really hard to keep up, but I just have hit absolute exhaustion. And I know by listening to and hearing from all of these people that are, all of us that are in this place. I mean, there's so many of us. I know that I'm not the only one. I hear from people every day who are in the same place, who have created this really great life that they're just struggling to keep up with. And they know that they've come to this place where I came to, 8 years ago, where something's got to give. All of the things that I'm doing aren't working. So now what? Because what happens if you continue on this way? What is the cost of continually, perpetually staying on this treadmill, searching, buying more things, searching for the answers everywhere out there, feeling completely disconnected? You can hold up the facade for so long, but ultimately what happens is you start to die inside. You start to feel completely disconnected from your life. And you can one day have that place where you wake up and you don't recognize yourself anymore. And often this happens with midlife crisis, right? We hear this all the time. Oh, in your 40s, your 50s, you're going to hit a midlife crisis. And I believe that midlife crisis is when you come to the point where you realize you've been living a life that's not your own. And so I had that experience. I was living a life that wasn't my own. I know that there's so many of you out there who are also living a life that you feel like is not your own. But the really good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. That the really good news is that there is an answer. There is a way out. There is a way to live that life to where it's not just looking happy and wonderful on the outside, but that it can really truly be that happy, wonderful life coming from the inside, where you are tapping into your actual authenticity of who you really are and who you're meant to be. So I've been able to come to this understanding myself, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with you and share it with everyone that I can, that there is a way out. There is a way to come back to that place, to you, to finding your true authentic happiness. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to start to share with you the process of the proprietary method that I have been able to discover and create of finding a map to your true authentic happiness. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Charleen Hess Show. Today we are talking about how to discover your own personal map to true happiness. So before we went to break, we were talking about when you come to this place in your life, like I was just 8 years ago, where you look in the mirror and you realize, how have I gotten here? Who am I? What is this life that I've created? How do I get unstuck? So your life looks great on the outside. Things look like they're going really wonderfully, but on the inside, you're feeling disconnected. You're feeling lost. You're feeling trapped, feeling like there's still this big gaping hole that you're trying everything to fill. So I'm going to start by giving you a couple of steps that worked for me when I came to this place in my life. So if you want to get a pen and a paper and you want to write some of these steps down, feel free to do so. If you're listening in and you're in a place that you can't sit down and do that, then I'm just going to offer that you can email me at livingwhole@charleenhess.com, and I will email you the steps if you can't sit down with me and work on this right now. So the first step in finding this way out of this chaos that you've potentially created for yourself is, number one, is to take stock of where you are, to look at where you are in your life. Look at the whole picture. What are the aspects of your life that you want? What are the aspects that are working for you? and what are the aspects that are not working for you. So taking time to look at what is it. So look at your situation, be really real, and look at, okay, what's working and what's not working. And the really important part about this is when you go through and you look at the areas that are working and the areas that aren't working is that you don't create any type of judgment about the areas that are not working for you. You want to make sure that you are just putting this information down as it just is. So it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just, I feel good about this, I don't feel good about this, and write all of these things down. The other really important part about making a big change in your life is when you realize that your life isn't working for you anymore, or aspects of your life are not working for you anymore, is to take ownership and to take responsibility. You have to realize that the place that you are in your life is by your own doing. And sometimes that can be really hard. For instance, I will never forget the time when I was sitting down and talking to my life coach. And I was sitting there and I shared with her how miserable I was in my life, how I was so unhappy. I was unhappy in my marriage. I didn't feel like I had any connection. There was absolute loss of love. I was feeling angry and resentful. I was very unhappy with how things were going, with how I was in with my children as a parent. I was so unhappy with all of the aspects in my life. And I sat there for probably about 20 minutes sharing all the details of how unhappy I was in my life. And she looked at me square in the face and she said, "You have exactly the life that you want." I was completely incensed. I was so angry. I just looked at her and I said, "Did you not just hear everything that I said to you, how miserable I am?" She said, "That's exactly the life that you want, because if you wanted a different life, you would have a different life." That hit me like a ton of bricks, like right between the eyes. It nailed me. And I realized that it was absolutely true. It was that first moment that I realized that I am not a victim in my own life. Nobody put me in this situation. Now, sure, I could certainly point my finger and blame all the experiences that I had in my life of why I was stuck in this situation. But the reason that I was stuck was because of the belief systems that I had that put me in this place of being stuck. I was not a victim in my own life. You are not a victim in your own life. If you are experiencing the same thing, the only way out is by taking ownership to realize that you're not a victim. Sometimes that can feel really overwhelming and feel like a sense of powerlessness, because sometimes we tend to feel like there is a sense of power in being a victim, because then we don't have any responsibility, right? Because I'm stuck here. I've been put here. I've been forced into this situation because of fill in the blank. But in the truth, the power lies in the responsibility, because if you realize that you are responsible for where you're at, then you're responsible for getting yourself out of that situation. You have the power to stay there, and you have the power to get yourself out of that situation. So the number one, very first, most important step in getting unstuck, in reclaiming a life of purpose and meaning and joy and finding true happiness, is to realize you are not a victim in your own life, that you have the power to change. So you are the one that is writing the script. So if your life was a movie, you are the author, right? You're the author of this story. You're the author of this book. You are the director of this movie. You're the producer of the movie. You're the screenwriter of this movie. And you get to be the main character. So looking at the story that you've already been in, right? You've been playing a role in your life. You're the main character in your life. What's working? What's not working? Pick up the pen and start writing a different script. You get to choose the life that you want to have. What do you want your life to look like? So the next part is, what do you want? And in my experience working with my clients, I have found that that can be a really overwhelming question. I often look at my clients and I'll say, well, what is it that you want? What do you really want to have? And they look at me, deer in the headlights. And if I push a little bit more, what do you want? Often I get the answer, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. I'm feeling so much pressure. I don't know what I want. And that was an experience that I also had too. If you don't know what you want, then how are you going to get there? So the next step is to get clear on what is the kind of life that you want to have. What do you want? What do you want to experience? Do you want deep, meaningful relationships? Do you want to have a partner? Do you want to have a house? Do you want to feel a sense of purpose? Do you want to know what your purpose is? Do you want to know what's the meaning? What is it that you really want? And I can tell you that the thing that you want isn't on the outside. It isn't out here. It's not going to magically come to you by deciding, I want this thing out there, and then, okay, universe, I'm ready to manifest it. Bring it in. I'm ready for it to show up. Because the thing that you want is the thing that you need to become. Think about that. The very thing that you want is the thing that you need to become. The beauty of that is it's the thing that you already are. The thing that you want is the thing that you need to become, but it's also the thing that you already are. That can be a brain twister. But if you think about it, let's break it down. Okay, so let's break it down. The thing that you want, the thing that you're looking for on the outside. I want a deep, meaningful relationship. Let's just use that one as an example. I want a deep, meaningful relationship. I want connection, right? A deep, meaningful relationship means you have a connection with somebody, right? They see you, they get you, you get them. So this is this thing that I want. As I want a deep, meaningful relationship, I want connection. Okay, so that is what you need to become for yourself. You need to have that deep, meaningful relationship with yourself first. That connection happens first inside of you with yourself. So that's the thing that you can become, is you become that deep connection. You become that relationship within yourself. And it's the thing that you already have. If it's something that we desire, it's something that already exists inside of us. We've just lost connection to it. We've lost sight of it. You already are that connection. You were it from the time that you were born. We had that connection from the infancy on until we came to that place in our lives where we got that disconnect, where we lost sense of self, where we started to see ourselves as separate from the rest of the world, where we started to see ourselves as separate from other people around us. That separation happened and we started to disconnect. And so there's a way to reconnect to that place. There's a way to come back to realizing and connecting to that you already are. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll share with you the next step to finding that connection. Welcome back. You're listening to the Charleen Hess Show, and we are talking about creating a life that is happy on the inside as well as on the outside, and how to discover your own personal map to that true happiness. So first, we're talking about this first step is realizing that, number one, you're not a victim in your life, that you have control, and that you get to write the script. That you are the screenwriter, you're the author, you're the producer, you're the director, and the main character in your own show. So in creating your new life, in creating the life that you want, the first step is you have to figure out, well, what is it that you want? What kind of life do you want to have? Which boils down to, who is it that you want to be? Realizing that that is who you already are. And so how do you connect to that awareness? That sounds like, it's like you could say, Charlene, okay, that sounds a little bit kind of out there. What is it that you're trying to say? What is it that you really mean by that? So it's creating a sense of self-awareness. Having self-awareness is created by being able to look at yourself from a really honest place. So it's more than just having a sense of people mirroring back to you who they see you as, but realizing when you're playing a part. Like I had shared with you in the beginning of the story, I got lost in the role that I was playing, the role of perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect business owner, successful, all of the things, super successful at a really young age. This role that I was playing, I actually got lost in it, and I started to believe that that's who I was. I was stuck in a performance. I had become a human doing, and I was no longer a human being. That happens when you lose a sense of self-awareness of what's really happening. And the way that you get to that place of self-awareness to where you're aware of, who am I really on the inside? What is it that I really feel and really think on the inside, not who am I presenting myself to be on the outside? The way to get to that place is through meditation. So the first, for me, how that happened was I started just by reading a lot of self-help books. Read everything I could get my hands on about, all of these concepts and ideas of, self-help. And I wanted to have this awareness of who I was and how I fit into this world and what true happiness really meant. And I read all of these different books, and that is really, really helpful. And it is a really great place to start, to be able to begin to get this sense of awareness of, who am I and who am I presenting myself as? But the really biggest part, or the part for me that created the biggest change, was when I began to meditate. Because we can get information and we can read books, we can listen to podcasts, you can listen to radio shows, and we can have something that sparks something in us where we go, yeah, that's a really great concept, or that's a really great phrase, or, oh, I love that, I'm going to write that down. And you can make that become an affirmation, or you can, talk about it with your friends and start to try and build that into your life and embody that way of being or that concept that you heard. But really, the biggest change happens when you sit in silence and quiet down all the noise so that you can really connect with yourself in a different, deeper, more meaningful way. Meditation was so hard for me. As a human doing, I was always active, always busy, always moving. And it was kind of a way of escape, right? It's like, if I don't want to sit still long enough because I'm afraid of the silence, because what's going to come up. This happens, you see this all the time. Like, people often, they can't sit in absolute silence. They need noise all the time. I have to go to sleep with the TV on. I have to have the radio playing to go to sleep. When they're driving in the car, they have to have the radio on. We're constantly putting information into our brain that's constantly filtering, that our brain is constantly filtering, but we're staying distracted. There needs to be a time and a place where you can come to silence. It's sort of like, your cell phone, take for instance, your cell phone's constantly producing. We're putting information in it. It's giving information back. But at some point, you have to plug the cell phone back in, right? The battery dies. Well, that happens to us as well. Eventually, our internal battery, our brain battery dies. We need to unplug so that we can plug in, so that we can recharge. And that's through meditation. Meditation can look like a lot of different things. So a lot of times when I say meditation, or I'm speaking with my clients and I say, okay, to meditate, they give me the same resistance that I gave all of the coaches and people that shared with me that I should meditate, which is, I can't meditate. Like, I can't quiet my mind that long. And it's really just a waste of time. It's not working. You hear that a lot. And so one of the things that I share with people is, well, what does your form of meditation look like? So first of all, what's the point, right? The purpose of meditation is to stop the noise, right? So you got to get to a place of silence where you are no longer taking information in, to where you can just stop with any information coming in. Secondly, it's stilling your mind and getting off of the treadmill of a repetitive thought, right? So this repetitive thought cycle. It's this problem-solving mode that our brain goes into when there's something that it doesn't understand, or it needs to figure out, or it needs to find a place to file this information into. And so we have a problem arise, situation, and so our mind starts to cycle through all of these possible scenarios of how to fix this situation. And then you can sit down in silence, and instantly the brain pops up and starts running through this thought cycle. And I call this a habit dysfunction or a pattern, where we're just like continually going through this thought cycle. And so when you realize that that's happened, it's returning back to your breath, or returning back to your environment, coming back to all of your senses, your sensory organs, and noticing where you are, coming back to the present moment to stop that continuous thought cycle. So that's kind of the point of meditation, is first of all, to stop the noise, to stop taking information in, come to a place of silence. Secondly, is to give yourself an opportunity to step out of repetitive thought cycle. The other third piece of purpose of meditation is to come to a place to where you can connect to your deep down, to that place inside of you that's your knowing, this place of when everything else is stripped away, who are you at your core? Depending on how far disconnected you are from that place will kind of determine how long it will take to get back there. For me, I was very disconnected. I was very far off from where I was. And so I started with movement meditation. So I couldn't sit still long enough. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not taking in any sensory information through listening, but I needed to move. And so I would just go for walks in the woods. And as I was going through for walks in the woods, I would choose trails that didn't have any people, because I didn't want to interact with people. Because again, I'm trying to not take in information. And I would just go for a walk and let my mind settle and let my mind calm. And that was a really great start of coming back to me, to getting to that place of calmness. Eventually, I worked into doing guided meditations where I learned how to focus on just my breathing or just my breath. And so like in breathing, I would feel the sensation of the air coming out of my nostrils, like onto my lip. This is often used in like Vipassana type of meditation. So as I would sit in silence, I got to the place where I was able to now sit still long enough. And I would try to sit for 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes of where I would just try and stop the repetitive thought cycle. Sometimes in my walk in nature, I could stop the cycle, and sometimes I couldn't. So by focusing on the trees, focusing on the smell of the woods, the smell of the flowers, focusing on the sensation of my feet, or the sound of my feet crunching on the leaves, that would bring me back to the present moment, which would pull me out of the thought cycle. Sitting in the seated meditation where I'm just focusing on my breath, getting into that place of stillness, seeing if I can get my brain to just settle, then I can reconnect to that place of my breath. Remember, okay, I'm back to my breath. I'm not running in that thought cycle anymore. Bring it back to just your breathing. And that worked. I was amazed. I eventually went from 5 minutes to 15 minutes to 20 minutes. And it was I felt like when I would come out of that meditation, that I felt like a completely different and new person. I was like, whoa, I almost felt like I had a nap, or I felt like I'd had a good night's sleep. And it was only 20 minutes of calming my thoughts, calming my brain. So that might be something to try for a type of meditation for you. And then eventually I worked into being able to do a different type of meditation, a meditation that I learned from working with Kyle Cease, where I sat in meditation for an entire hour. And I allowed whatever was going to come up to look at it. And so what I found in sitting in meditation for an hour was all of these things would come up, and I would look at them and not attach and let them go. And I found that as I did that, I started to unpeel the layers that I had created and built of this false identity, of this living in a life of should and supposed to, or what I call being disconnected from my authenticity. Because authentically, who I was way deep down. And the only way to get to that place was through sitting in this place of meditation. Additionally, I was working with a life coach, and it was so helpful. I was working with Cornelia Stephanie. She was my life coach. And so as these layers are unpeeling, I would have somebody that I could talk to that could hold space for me, that could help me come to a place of acceptance, loving, understanding, as I was needing to forgive myself for this way of living, forgive my parents for the way that they were with me. Because as I was sitting in these meditations and developing this self-awareness was when all of the limiting belief systems that I'd had showed up. All of the things that had been programmed into me from the time that I was a child started to show up. In creating self-awareness, you start to understand the why you are behaving the way that you're behaving, why you have created the life that you currently have, the footsteps that you're following that were the footsteps of your parents, that were the footsteps of your family, that were the footsteps of your teachers or your mentors or the people that were important to you in your life. You start to realize that you are following this path that was laid out for you. And now comes a time where you get to ask yourself, is that the path that I really want to be on? So to come to that place of being able to ask, what is it that I really want? You first have to strip away the layers of why am I living the way that I'm living? How do I pull out this life that I have that I've created that maybe isn't the life that I actually want? Maybe there's aspects of it that you want. Maybe there's parts of it that are working because there's this sense of our true selves, our deep down, that is still always at play. I don't think that we completely lose connection with it. I feel like it's still always there. And certain situations come that help it to reappear. And we have this sense of connection where we realize, oh, I'm actually, this is this part of myself where you get excited and you're like, yeah, that's what it is. But then the life that we created takes over and it kind of buries it again. And we go, oh, wait, that's not who I am maybe, or I'm not really connected to that, or I don't know how to fully go with that thought or that idea. And so that's where we start to nurture that place of that coming up. So that's the part of meditation. So we have, first of all, creating self-awareness, right? So we know that, who am I? How did I get here? How do I get out? I'm not a victim in my own life. I'm the one that's in control. I have the power. I'm writing the script. What do I want? What is it that I really want in my life? Where am I? How did I get here? Who am I? Sitting in meditation and letting that start to come out, letting that start to unfold. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is when you are doing this work of uncovering your belief systems is to remove all judgment, to remove all blame, to remove any type of guilt or shame, realizing that it just is. So as you create awareness, sometimes we can come to this place of going deeper into a place of shame or guilt because we have this idea of, I should have known better. How did I let myself get so disconnected? How did I get so far removed? How did I get into this relationship? You start to realize the people that are in your life that you've played this role for, how do you step out of that? You can do it. I did it. You can come to that place of, as you are creating this level of honesty with yourself by being more authentic, even if it's just one area of your life. Maybe you're not like me and you're not living a complete false life like I was. Maybe you're living just an area of your life. Maybe it's a relationship or a job where you just can't seem to disconnect from the box that you've put yourself in. You can. As you start to develop this level of self-awareness, as you spend more and more time in meditation, you are going to be able to find the exact words, the exact path, the exact way to stepping out of that box or stepping out of that situation or stepping out of that job or circumstance that you've gotten yourself into. And you can only do it through being in a very loving space with yourself, to realizing that it just is. That's one of the biggest things that I learned by doing the work with Byron Katie, is you just have to learn to love what is without judgment. Don't judge it as right or wrong, good or bad. Just realize this is what is. And when you realize that this is what is, you can then more quickly change the thing that it is. But if you get stuck in judging what it is, shaming about the experience, then you're stuck in that judging it, and then you're not actually doing the work to change it, to make a difference, to do something that is going to be putting you in a better path, taking you where it is that you really want to go. And then the final piece, the most important piece that I have discovered in creating this map to living a truly happy life, is remembering how to play. That was the piece that was the most missing in my life as I began my transformation work. I was, like I said earlier, I was a really good human doing. And so I was really adamant that I was going to do all the hard work, and I was going to do it right. And I was going to dive in. And I did. I dove in and I read all the books. I did every homework assignment that my life coach gave me. I did everything. I meditated and I sat and I timed myself, and I really got in there and I did the work, and I did the purging, and I did the crying, and I unpeeled all of the layers, because I grew up in a really traumatic household. I had a lot of abuse to overcome. So I had a lot of limiting beliefs that I needed to uncover and change to create this new life. And so I did really good job. I became such a good hard worker. But what about the fun? And what about the play? I often find that with people that I work with, that when they're in this place where they're realizing that there needs to be a transformation in their life, things seem very serious and very heavy. And they can be, but they can also be light and playful. Because I also believe that the way to connect to your deep down, to connect to that truly authentic person that you are inside, is by remembering how to play. Remember when you were a little kid, life was so carefree and simple. Everything that we did was play. Everything that we did, running was play. I just had an experience where I've decided to start running track with a fitness group, because I really want to become a better runner. I want to be able to run 5-6 miles and not feel like I'm going to die. I feel like running is this thing that I should just be capable of doing. And not that I want to run marathons or be an ultra runner, but I just want to reconnect to that place in myself where, like I was when I was a kid, that I liked to run. I mean, look at running is this natural thing that we do when we're a kid. As we get older and we have sedentary lifestyles, we kind of lose our ability to run and play. So anyway, I was doing this track workout, and it was so hard. Oh my gosh, it was so hard as I'm running around trying to run fast and keep up and do the workout with people that were in the group. And I hit this place where I was like, everything in me wanted to just stop and quit. And I had this point where I reconnected to myself and I said, wait a minute, Charleen, running used to be fun. What if you just tapped into that place, remembering what it was like when you were a kid and you just ran for fun? And it was that simple. Like literally, it just shifted to where I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Running can be fun. It doesn't have to be a performance. It doesn't have to be anything other than fun. And when I tapped into that place, it changed the entire rest of the workout. So often when I'm working with my clients and I bring up this concept, or if I'm just talking with people and I say, I really help people to create more play in their lives. When people ask, well, what do you do? I help people find more play in their life, because we all want to play more. And sometimes people get really excited, and other times people are like, I am so overwhelmed. I am so busy in my life. I don't have time to add finding ways to play in my life. And my instant response is, all the reason more that this should become a priority in your life of remembering how to play. So something that I ask people is, what is your playlist? Create a playlist. What were the things that you used to do that you really liked to do when you were a kid? What did you do when you were at recess, when you were in school? What were the things that you liked to do? For me, swinging on a swing, I was always in line. I wanted to be first to the swing set. I loved to swing on the swing set when I was a kid. Playing tag was really fun when I was a kid. I used to love to build forts and do puppet shows. I loved to just sit and like let my imagination go. I used to love to color. I loved coloring, and I loved coloring with colored pencils more so than crayons. And so these are all things that I used to love to do that were ways of play. I loved to sing. Singing was so much fun. I would sing and I would make up songs. I loved listening to music and dancing. Oh my goodness. My sisters and I, we would dance for hours. So these are all things that are play. So for you, what is create your playlist? So that's the first step, is create a playlist. Remember what it was like to play. What were the things that you used to find as fun and playful? Maybe it was playing with a dog. Maybe it was playing catch. Getting together with your friends, riding your bike. And then start doing these things. Start adding these things as part of your daily life. And if you are one of those people who that seems really overwhelming, like how I don't have time to go play catch, I don't have time to ride my bike, then I want to challenge you to just look at switching your mindset, like I did when I was running track, where I was doing something that I often do. For instance, my workouts. I work out every day. And in my workout can be work or my workout can be play. Just by how I would think about it in my mind, how I shifted. By tapping into that inner child, that place of, oh yeah, that's right, this can be fun. So those are the components of creating a more meaningful life, reconnecting to your purpose, and living in authentic joy. That's it. That is your map. Your map is meditation, self-awareness, and play. If you add these 3 components to your life on a regular basis, I guarantee that you will be able to step out of that place of being a human doing, reconnect to being a human being, and start living a life that is your own. A life that you are connected to your true inner self, your deep down. Thank you so much for sharing this time and this space with me. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Living Whole at charleenhess.com. You can go to my website at charleenhess.com, and I will be happy to give you a free 30-minute consultation to walk you through of creating your map. And if you have any questions or if you just want to chat, I'm here. I would love to talk to you. I'm going to be doing several workshops, and I'm even going to be doing a 7-day retreat in Fiji in November, where we're going to spend 7 days together building your map, going through each individual step while being in an amazing tropical environment of unplugging and recharging. So again, reach out to me, Living Whole at charleenhess.com. And you can also contact me through my website at charleenhess.com. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for listening to the Charleen Hess Show, Living on Your Heart's Edge with your host, Charleen Hess. Tune in every first and third Friday at noon Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com as Charleen empowers you to shed the layers of your ego and to connect to your heart so that you can live your calling and shine your unique divine light. For more information or to listen to past shows, visit charleenhess.com. That's CharleenHess.com. See you next time.